Welcome to Recovery Shared. My name is Justin Sims. I am joined by two lovely guests today. I've got Emily and Melissa Whidden today. Welcome, guys. Whidden. Melissa Whidden. We have to say it like she just said it. So I've known Melissa for a long time. We actually have known each other for 25 plus years. She's an incredible person. She's been through a lot and overcame it and has gone on to do incredible things, which is what recovery is really all about. And she's a nurse, she's a wife, she's a mom, she's an artist, and she's a retired crazy person. So
I don't know about retired, but
yeah,
okay.
I was gonna say.
All right, well, we'll jump into that a little bit. So I'm going to get right into the juicy stuff here. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a hard question to start, but it's an interesting question. And ask yourself this out there, and I'll ask myself too. What age in your life did you feel like you lost your innocence? It's a loaded question.
It is.
And it could be looked at as a lot of different ways, you know.
I would say I kind of felt it like around 13, 14 years old, you know. And I think a lot of that had to do with the environment of the arts, you know, because back in the 90s, like, you go to an art school, every kind of drug's available, and kids are experimenting with stuff, and there's house parties, you know.
Now, the drugs have changed since then. So what were some of the hot drugs in high school for you?
Oh, God, like rolls, acid.
So ecstasy,
yeah,
LSD.
LSD was a big one. Shrooms were a big one. A lot of pot, a lot of cocaine, alcohol. You know.
Some of those ones that are always there. The alcohol, the cocaine, and the weed ain't gone nowhere.
Yeah, I don't feel like heroin, crack, like the heavier things. Well, those are heavier in my head anyway. You know, were really
prevalent in the high school party scene. But a lot of ecstasy, a lot of acid. I remember that.
Yeah.
So you felt that at 13, 14.
Yeah, like 13, 14, but I never really got into the scene, like, you know, really, like, jumped in. I want to say I was, like, drinking and smoking pot by that time. When I was like 16 is when I really started to like party, you know. I started with shrooms and acid, and like I would go to parties and black out and have no idea what the hell happened that night.
So what do you think kick-started that elevation in using? Like from like, it sounds like you were the kid that dabbled a little bit. Let me try the pot, let me try the drink, maybe a little more than that. And then 16, you really jumped into the fire. So what happened in that 3 years, that 2-3 years that made you...
When I was like 13, 14 years old, I was doing dance rehearsals and classes pretty much every day of the week. So that's pretty much the reason I never really jumped into the party scene. I didn't have time.
Because you were busy with
Right. I was busy with dance, you know, and but I was always curious. And I always wanted to be, like, part of that crowd because that was, like, the cool crowd. And, like, you know, everybody was doing it. So, like, if I did it, too, I would be cool, you know. And right about 16, 17 years old, I started to skip rehearsals and dance classes and party more. And then I just decided, like, you know what? This is way better than dance. So, like, I'm just going to quit School of the Arts. I'm going to quit the dance studio. I'm going to go to regular high school. I went to Jupiter Community High School for my senior year. And just basically took off from there.
You know, when you were talking just now, it made me think of that old commercial where it's like, if your child is experiencing all of these symptoms, they might have a substance abuse problem. And one of them was like, loses interest in like stuff that they love.
Extracurriculars.
Right, like extracurriculars.
Right.
So you kind of check that box off with, you know, you were this diehard artist, this dancer that was always there, and then you just gave it up.
Right.
For these other things.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you know, I share my story at various meetings, and, you know, the more that you share your story, you become self-aware of, like, the motivations behind your, you know, your disease. And for me, I feel like dance was my first real addiction because I jumped in my first year. All I was doing was tap classes, and then I loved it so much that like I was in a company the following year. We were touring all over South Florida. We were going to Club Med, Mardi Gras. We were performing at the South Florida Fair. Like, any venue that we could get into, we were performing.
And those receptors were clicking off in your
brain. Oh,
brain.
yeah. It was just like I wanted more, you know?
You had that euphoria.
Yeah. Like, that's my personality is, like, if I really, really, truly get into something and love something, I want more of it. Like, it's never enough.
Addict.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fucking addicts.
I feel like we all kind of were at School of the Arts, you know? Like, we'd all jump in and, like, okay, yeah, there's a performance. Like, if you couldn't get an acting role, you were helping build the set. You were, you know, helping with the costume design or getting into makeup or, you know, like, whatever you could do to, like, be part of.
It is like an addiction, but I think that's why it's important that there's arts programs and, like, boys and girls clubs and stuff like that, so that kids, because if you would have stuck with the dedication of the dance, it would have probably saved you a lot of heartache later.
Well, that's the thing. I was very much into dance, that, you know, so much so that I already had some offers from some major dance companies, you know, like, hey, I even had a company in New York say, you can finish school in New York, you can stay at a girls' dormitory, and, like, you do school during the day, and then you do rehearsal at night. And it basically funneled into, like, one of the major ballet companies
of you being
New York.
In that company, kind of grandfathered in or whatever.
So it was like the Metropolitan Ballet Company
Wow.
and, you know, American Ballet Theater, like, those are the
major
places
hitters.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
so you obviously were at that level talent-wise. But was the work ethic still there?
Well, that's the thing. Like, even though I had that love of dance, and I knew at that time in my life, like, that's what I was meant to do. Like, that's what I was driven to do. I was good at it. You know, I had all these open doors. I still felt like I wasn't quite part of. You know, like, and even now, like, I struggle with the feelings of, like, I'm the outsider, and, like, it's not always true. Most of it's in my head.
Yeah, I was about to say,
You know, a lot of it is just me trying to notice the differences instead of similarities, which is a big problem I think a lot of us face. And then when I decided, like, you know what, I want to see what this party scene is all about, because these kids seem to be having fun, and, like, they're all really good friends, and they all have something to joke about on Monday at school, you know, and when I had that first, like, real, like, party experience, I felt a part of for the first time,
like,
probably
I arrived.
ever. Yeah. You know, and, like, and that's not to say that, like, all art students are, like, drug addicts or alcoholics. A lot of us just experimented and moved on with our lives and became productive members of society, and some of us struggle with addiction, you know, and I think getting that first feeling of, like, fitting in and being a part of, I wanted to hold on to that so desperately that I gave up the dance career. Like, that was just, like, in the rearview mirror. You know?
What a change.
Point, yeah. You know? And, I mean, that's how serious my alcoholism is and my drug addiction is. You know, I just gave up my dream, my ultimate dream, to be part of a professional company to fit in.
So you did that. And how did that work out? You fit in, did your using progress at that point?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It took off. Both of my parents went into recovery. They're both addicts. And they openly told me, like, you know, we're going to meetings now. And, like, this is, you know, our way of life. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Like, I'm happy for you guys, whatever. Great that you have a problem. I don't have a problem, you know, at that time. And
but they were trying to open that door.
Kinda, you know, like, they saw the signs, they knew the warning signs, and
they're your parents, so they made you, so they're like, genetically...
They're like, yeah, you kinda, yeah.
Both of us are this way, so there's a great likelihood that you are.
Right, and I am a strong believer that, you know, it is a genetic predisposition, but that being said, I have two other sisters that are normies. You know, they can drink with impunity, and they can, you know, my older sister can take 2 swigs out of a beer and not think anything of it. You
Amateur.
know? Yeah, and I'm like, okay, that's like, that's weird.
It's not how you drink.
Pisses me off, but whatever.
I judge how people drink too.
I'm like, what are you doing? Your shit's warm. Like, you shouldn't even let it get warm. You should just, like, chug it down while it's
Because Jessica
cold.
used to work at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And a really nice restaurant, and they would have, you know, these, like, parties and stuff, and we would go, and she'd have, like, 1 beer in 6 hours. And I'd be like, what the...
That's normal.
That's not how you drink.
That's not normal.
That's how you drink.
I mean, not to us.
That's not how you drink. And I'm sitting there like the devil going, why don't you go get another beer? I'm like vicariously living through it's terrible. It's terrible, but they're a bunch of amateurs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think where I really, really fucked up is I had gotten some gel tabs from a friend of mine, and
that's always the beginning of a great story.
It is.
I got a couple gel tabs from a friend of mine.
Tabs, guys, and what had happened was
buckle up. There's a seatbelt on the other side of the couch too. Buckle up.
So my mom had this really great sponsor, and her son was, kind of hanging out with me at that time. And he's like, what are you doing? I was like, cutting up gel tabs. What the fuck does it look like? And he's like, can I have one? And I told him no. And then I hid them, but I didn't hide them. I was like, no, you can't have any, because I didn't want him having any of my drugs. They're mine. So I'm sitting outside smoking a cigarette, and he comes out and he's like, how long do these things take to kick in? And I'm like, oh shit. So, fast forward to the next morning. I mean, my mom obviously knew. She came out and yelled at us. I couldn't even look at her because her face was contorted. It was almost like Devil's Advocate. When she looks at them and the demon shit's happening.
Not a good trip.
And I was like, Mom,
what was she yelling at? She go, what were you guys doing in the front yard?
I can't believe you guys.
What were you guys doing in the front yard when she came out?
We were just sitting there smoking cigarettes and
yeah, I'm sure.
The shapes that the trees were taking on.
Meanwhile, homeboy's licking the rearview mirror of your mom's car.
So we were just
you're half naked, rolling around the grass.
We were talking some, I don't even know, some crazy shit. And she comes out and she's like, I can't believe you guys would do this. And she's just, and I'm like, Mom, I love you. I gotta go.
Talk to me when your face isn't melting.
Yeah. I gotta go. So, the next morning she sits me down and she gives me an ultimatum that, I have to get a job, pay for my own stuff, insurance and everything. And then I had to do at least 3 meetings with her a week. With her. So that she knew that I was there. Because she knew how I was. Thank God for that. And I would sit in there and I'm like, this is kind of like a cult. I don't think this is for me. You guys are seriously, seriously screwed up people. And maybe you have a problem, but I don't have a problem.
So you just had snap judgments.
Yeah.
Fire it off.
And I was like, yeah, they're kind of cool. They're cool people, but we're not cut from the same cloth.
I'm not like you.
Right.
Right.
But I think somewhere along the lines, that seed was planted because, fast forward years to, I was living in South Carolina, going through nursing school, had to stop the drugs because, they drug test. So I was like, well, they can drug test. Alcohol doesn't show up really. I mean, and if it does, they just figure all right, she had a couple drinks the night before, whatever.
That's normal.
Yeah. But my drinking wasn't normal. It got to the point where I was in a relationship with a sun up to sundown drinker. I started to mirror image his drinking. Whenever I spent the night, if we woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, we would do a couple shots, smoke a cigarette, do another couple shots, and go to bed. Because that's normal, right? That's not normal.
That's how to really go to bed.
For me. I mean, it just felt right. But I just reached this emotional bottom where I felt like I couldn't keep doing the things that I was doing. You know what I mean? Just that feeling of
who am I?
If I didn't recognize myself,
right. First
of all, and then second of all, I just felt so emotionally and mentally bankrupt. And I was like, it's just not doing it anymore. The alcohol's not doing it. I would smoke pot from time to time, but not too much because of the drug tests,
and it just wasn't giving you that same feeling that it started. So it wasn't really fun anymore.
No.
Hold on one second. Guys, we can hear you. Okay, so continue because we can edit. Okay.
So, it just really was not what it used to be. And
the party was over. It wasn't fun anymore.
It was over. And at that point, I was talking to my now husband on the phone. He was living down here in South Florida. And, I was going back and forth between South Carolina and there. Anytime I had a break from school, I would come down and visit. And he thought I was a normie. I thought I was a normie. And then all of a sudden, this emotional rock bottom hits. And, I call him in tears. And I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I don't know what the fuck to do. And, like, you know, mind you, he's been sober for, like, probably, like, 5 years by this point. And he knows my parents are in recovery. And he's like, well, you know the solution. You just have to do it. You know, like, you have to do it for you, not for anybody else. And, like, that was, like, the biggest thing for me, that when I got into recovery, it was for me. You know, it wasn't for my parents. It wasn't for him. It wasn't for anybody but me.
It's the best reason to do it.
Absolutely. You know, and like immediately I started to feel better, and I had that feeling of being a part of without the drugs or the alcohol. And that's how I, like, all of the things that I used to make fun of in the meetings with my parents suddenly started to click and, like, make sense. Like, all those little annoying things that they say, like, one day at a time and let go and let
But you were ready now.
Right. I was ready. Like, I was emotionally and, like, spiritually ready.
So they said,
like,
when the student's ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
And when you were ready, the program appeared again.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome, man. So you jumped back. You jumped right in. You turned into one of those people that you thought was a cult member.
Yes.
And then what started happening? Because I know for a lot of people in recovery that have long-term success and long-term sobriety, they start to do this over here, and then they start to see benefits in their life. So they keep feeding this, and this gets bigger. Keep feeding this, and this gets bigger. So talk to us about how that worked for you.
So I already had my career set, because I don't know how the hell I made it through nursing school drinking. Like, honestly, I really don't. There were times, it has to have been God, you know. That's what I call it anyway. I started to feel, I don't even want to say like a normal person, but like my feelings and emotions felt manageable for the first time since like I had first picked up a drink, you know, or a drug. And so I was like, all right, you know, like I don't have to go drink and I don't have to get high to feel like okay and to feel a part of and to not feel afraid. You know, like that was the biggest thing, is like I always constantly lived in fear of how people felt about me, like what they thought of me, like everybody, like if I walked into a room, automatically like you're judging me and you're thinking something horrible about me, and I don't know what it is.
They are.
Yeah, like I'm creating this scenario in my head of, you know, what this other person's thinking, and it's totally fucking crazy because they're probably thinking about what they ate for breakfast or like what they're going to do for dinner, or
highly
like,
unlikely it's about you.
Yeah, it's probably not about me,
right.
But that's part of the disease, right? Like the self-centered thinking, like everything's about me. And I don't know, like I started going to meetings. I knew that it was important to take the suggestions that people gave in the rooms. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the time that they had. You know what I mean? Like, I already kind of knew that from hanging around my parents and, like, their, you know, their friends. And so I did. I got a sponsor. I started going through the book. I started working steps. You know, I was making, like, a certain amount of meetings. I had to call my sponsor every day, which in the beginning I was really good at because I was terrified. You know, not so much anymore. Love you, Katie. If you're watching this, I will call you after this, I promise. You know, it's just, it's amazing how, like, you dive into the work and then you start to notice things are changing. I don't think it's really like a conscious effort to change anything. You just start doing the work and then the results follow. You know, so for me, it was like, oh my gosh, like I'm being invited to places. I have like friends that call and actually care about how I'm doing. You know, when I was out there drinking and using, people would call and like, hey, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. But they didn't really care about how I felt 9 times out of 10. They just wanted to know, A, if I was going to go get fucked up, B, if I had the money to help them get fucked up, or C, like, did I know where to go to get those supplies? You know, like it was always centered around the substance, and just so shallow.
It's nice having friends with selfless intent.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, when you were describing how you felt when you like kind of arrived and it kind of balanced you out, I had the image of Neo in the Matrix going like this, and all the bullets stopping, and then they all dropped.
Yeah.
So it's like all the bullets that you thought were coming at you just drop to the floor.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So what other kind of benefits, and then I'd like to get into your guys' relationship, but what other benefits has your life gained from this better design of living?
Well, and this is not recommended, Gary and I were already in a relationship when I had the revelation that I was not a normie. And, one of the biggest things was that, like, he sat down and he set boundaries immediately because he had the sobriety time and he had the knowledge of, what it's like to be a newcomer and, like, all the things associated with that. And he's like, look, this is important that you keep your sobriety, like, for you. Like, you do the work that you need to do, and, like, I'll be here in the interim, and so we had our relationship. I started working the program. A few months in, I found out that we were pregnant with our first child, Liam. And early sobriety pregnant is a bitch, but it's doable. It's definitely manageable.
It's doable.
It is. It absolutely
is. Not recommended, but doable.
Not recommended, but, life happens. It's life on life's terms. And at that point, I called my sponsor, and I was like, hey, I'm pregnant. And she's like, yay, congratulations. Wait, are we happy? And I'm like, we're happy. And she's like, okay, yay. Because it could have gone either way, right? And she recommended that I get a pregnancy sponsor because she'd never had a child. And she's like, I can help you with sobriety, and I can put your hand in the hand of God's and walk you through these steps. But to help deal with, like, the emotions and the hormones and stuff, like, as you're going through the pregnancy, she's like, I have no idea what to do. So I did. I got...
Good on her, though.
Yeah.
To recognize that, I think a lot of people's ego would have gotten in the way.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have been able to go, this person's better fit for you right now.
That's the great thing about her, and that's why she's still my sponsor today is, she always recognizes her shortcomings in... Not necessarily shortcomings, but, like, where her limits are with being able to help me with certain things. Because of her, I do therapy once a week to kind of dig deeper into, like, my own personal issues. Because, honestly, at the end of the day, yeah, you can go to your sponsor with shit and, like, they'll give you advice and, kind of share from their experience. But... she was like, look, I can help you with certain things, but my job is to walk you through the program, not to be your therapist. So it's a good suggestion that you get into therapy. And I did. And, it's kind of bringing, like, a new dimension to my sobriety because I'm able to work on the things on the inside that I may not necessarily be okay with. And then as a result of that, I'm able to focus more on, like, the program and my spirituality and, kind of, like, be there for others and not be in my head, as much as I normally am. So.
Good on you. And good on your sponsor to recognize that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
our sponsorship family is very big on, like, seeking outside help if necessary. My sponsor, my grand sponsor, and a couple of the other girls from the family, like, we all go to therapy, and it helps tremendously. And, like any good addict, alcoholic, whatever you want to call it, like, okay, I'm going to go to, like, maybe 2-3 months of this, and then I'll be okay. Like, that instant gratification.
I'm fixed.
Yeah, like, I'm fixed. Like, I'm good, thanks, here's your money, see you later, or never. And, that's never the case. But it's nice. It's nice to have, like, that gradual...
The journey of it.
Yes. It's kind of like working your program, but it's, just all about, like, you and, like, your past experiences and how those have affected you and how they affect you now. And, like, it's almost like little, like, epiphanies, that occur. Like, you're sitting there talking to your therapist and all of a sudden you're like, oh, my God, so that's why blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, okay, sure.
So it's like, connecting those dots.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really working on the isms on, like, a deluxe level. Because you work on the isms in the program too, but, when you go, like, to your therapist, you're not talking about alcohol use. You talk to your sponsor about that.
Yeah.
But you're working on the real you, the isms. That's interesting.
Well, see, that's the great thing too. My therapist, she's a normie, but she has a lot of, you know, like varying clients. So she does have some people that are addicts, alcoholics, that either are in recovery or not in recovery, and they're trying to like, you know, they're trying to work their stuff out. And
See, that's
so
interesting
kind of
to
it
me.
Intertwines.
That there's the alcoholic that's active, that goes to therapy,
Yeah.
but won't go to a meeting.
Right. Because
You
they're
know?
in their head they're not an alcoholic, you know, and I was there.
I'm just going
and
through
all
some
of us
personal
are.
issues. I got to work out
Yeah.
my demons.
Yeah,
And then
like
I can drink like
and
a
then I
gentleman.
can drink. I can drink just fine, and you know, sometimes that is the case. Sometimes people, you know, have like something traumatic happen in their life, and they drink over it, or you know, smoke pot, or you know, fill in the blank, and they work that out, and like they can, you know, and great for them.
And sometimes, you know, someone will relapse when their shoelace breaks.
Right. I mean, that would totally,
Everybody's different.
that would be me. I would drink to fixing my shoelace too. Just saying.
Or we just stayed drunk, so
Yeah.
no matter what came at us, we were ready.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You know? Talking about your sponsor, you know, the thing I thought of was that they say that, you know, that jazz musicians are the best musicians. And that just because they can kind of play everything, I don't know if that's true or not. I've just heard that a lot in the art world. But I also heard that, like, a great jazz drummer knows when to not drum. That makes a lot of sense,
That
though.
does.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of your sponsor.
Yeah.
She knew when to,
Mhm.
you know, and it kind of is the opposite of like some shitty like deathcore metal garage band where they're just like, you know, like chaos.
Like a 10-minute drum solo, and you're just sitting there.
But it's
like,
a 10-minute drum solo during a 10-minute guitar solo, during
Yeah.
a 10-minute bass
Yes.
solo, during
Yeah.
a 10-minute vocal solo,
Yeah.
all together.
Yeah.
Whereas like knowing when there's too many cooks in the kitchen,
Mhm.
you know, and controlling the chaos like that. So how did you guys meet?
Go ahead. I'll let you.
Actually,
Yeah, we haven't heard from you, Emily.
Oh man, through a mutual friend of ours. Actually, she knew my uncle growing up.
You knew her uncle?
Her uncle. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that the mutual friend?
No, actually, I think we met through Massime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I ate one of those once.
Uh,
A massive with a side of sauce.
Oh, you're hilarious.
I'm sorry, good.
Funny guy.
I got jokes.
He does. He got jokes for
I
days.
see.
Most of them are bad. I tell 100 jokes a day because 10 of them are good.
Yeah.
I got 90 misses, though.
He's right.
Babe Ruth had the most strikeouts. Just saying.
He's right.
This guy.
Yeah, this guy. You see what I had
So-
to deal with from 7th grade on? Yeah, we've known each other since 7th grade.
I'm the reason she drank.
Yeah,
All right,
definitely.
I'm the disease. I'm her disease. So what? So, okay, so you had a mutual friend
Yes.
that said, hey, thing one, meet thing two. Like, how did this happen?
Like we just met in a meeting. What happened was I've gone through so many sponsors this year. Like.
Just this year.
Just this year.
Mm.
She's about, I think, my 4th sponsor because my sponsors just keep relapsing. So,
So all 3 of the ones before her relapsed?
yes.
How much time did they have before they relapsed?
One of them had a year. I don't remember what the other one had. And the last one had 18 months.
Wow.
And I knew her from Jupiter because I was born and raised here.
Okay, so when you walked up to her, were you like, I really don't want to make this girl relapse, but will you be my sponsor? Like, the curse is yours now.
I know.
Right.
No, actually, it just, I was sharing in a meeting about how my sponsor relapsed, and like, once again, here I am. And her and I ended up talking after the meeting, and like, she could be as bitchy as me, so it's like she puts on that front of, you can't touch me emotionally, so like, don't even try.
So
Don't
you
even come
related
into my
there.
bubble.
Hold on, we
Yes.
call that the nurse face, like that.
the RBF. It's
So,
the nurse.
Like 2 alpha dogs in the yard, recognizing there's another alpha dog.
Right.
Okay, cool.
So, I mean, eventually at one point I was just like, hey, you want to sponsor me? And she's like, I guess so. Let's do
Honestly, it was more like,
that. That's not the impression you gave, though, so don't even
Yeah,
try.
that's not how she
in
felt.
my head, that's how I was like,
In her head, she was like, I really don't want to relapse. I really don't want to.
I'm like, are there any other people? No? You talking to me?
Because I'm stuck with you. I mean, you were the
Are you
first
talking
pick
to me?
I had. So I just...
Thanks.
Aw.
Wasn't anything special. I just was the only female in the room.
Now, how long have you guys been in this level of your relationship?
Month or two?
About that.
How's it been going?
Yeah, because it was like right around Thanksgiving time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit to the audience because we don't have much time left, but let's talk a little bit about what you guys, your view on what a sponsor-sponsee relationship should be.
Oh, well.
Let's talk about this.
Because this is something that's talked about in meetings. I mean, if you go to an Ask It Basket meeting,
Yes.
there's going to be at least 1 or 2 questions in that basket that's about sponsors.
Yes.
Or what do I... Yeah.
Right, because when you ask someone to be your sponsor, it's almost like asking your crush, like, will you go on a date with me? You know, like, it's that same nervous, like, oh my God, what if they say no? Like, I'm going to look like an idiot, you know? At least that was my experience with
I think that's a lot of people
Katie.
feel that way.
Yeah.
With guys especially, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I got to ask this other dude on a date, like, type of, like,
Yeah.
weird, like, dude, get over that, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she just kind of like casual, like she made it look so easy. She was like, "Hey, will you be my
After the amount
sponsor?"
of sponsors I've been
Deep
through,
down
at
you were
some
like,
point you're just like, hey,
This
like,
bitch
can
made
you?
that easy.
Yeah. This bitch, man, she just like, by the way, like, be my sponsor. Okay, so where are we going to eat? You know, I don't know. We don't really have a typical sponsor-sponsee relationship, and I kind of attribute that to the fact that she was already at a year, or right at a year sober when she asked me.
Plus, I came equipped with my own therapist, so that helped a lot.
Yeah, she was already
you
hitting
go.
the therapist. Like, I'm hitting the therapist, you know.
But you didn't have to really introduce her to the program at that point.
Yeah,
she
no.
knew what was going on. She was in here for a year. It
Yeah.
wasn't like the kid in rehab
Right,
going,
and
I need a
she's
fucking...
been through the steps before, so she knows what the ordeal entails. You know, like, she's been through it. And we are going through the steps again together. And, yeah, we're doing some reading tonight.
What do you guys see as common pitfalls that you see a lot of people in recovery fall in as far as picking right and wrong sponsors?
I don't think that you could pick a right or wrong. I feel like
Okay, stronger and weaker then,
Or more suited to you.
yeah. See,
which would make it stronger.
Yeah.
Stronger choice for you.
Yeah.
Not right or wrong.
Yeah, because, like, I think when you first get into the program, I mean, they tell you to choose a sponsor based on, like, what you want. And when you first come into early sobriety, honestly, I don't think any of us really know what we want when we first get into the rooms. So you just pick somebody that looks like halfway sane, that, like, has their shit together, has a car, has money, usually has, like, Starbucks/Dunkin' Donuts at every meeting. They always have a full pack of cigarettes. You know, like, those are the kind of things you kind of look for in early sobriety. And then that changes and evolves, you know, to... Like, I want someone that's, like, a businesswoman that can, you know, be
mindset.
sober and, like, do...
A way of life.
Or that's, like, a family woman. Like, she can make a family work with, like, a normie or, like, a fellow, you know, addict or alcoholic. You know, like, it all depends on, like, what your ultimate goals are. You know, like, where you really want to see yourself, like... Am I right? Am I wrong? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's kind of, like, that was my take on it. Like, and that's why I asked Katie, because, like, she just had this, like... serenity and like calmness even when people were acting like an asshole. You know what I mean?
She was
like,
stoic.
yeah, like I was always like a react before I think kind of person, and I think a lot of that contributed to being like in the theater program back in School of the Arts. Like you just kind of, you know, like improv, like you're taught to like
You
know,
go all
react,
in.
react. Like what's your first reaction? Do it. You
Got
know?
me in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Because I was good at it too.
Yeah. Taught you how to manipulate too, didn't it?
Oh, what?
Yeah. How to think quickly for lying.
Well, that's why
Think
William
on your feet.
Dafoe is my sponsor.
Oh.
I want what he has.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Green Goblin and all that.
Well, not really. He's more like Platoon. William Dafoe is my
Okay.
sponsor. Not so much like William Dafoe in the Spider-Man movies.
Okay.
Like I go older throwback William Dafoe as my sponsor.
Okay.
I don't really talk to the new William Dafoe. I'm more related. I relate to the younger one more.
Do you?
I do. And I need to die in a war movie. Hasn't happened yet. It will.
It will.
I've never been in a war movie.
You should be.
Yeah, I should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I haven't been.
But you're probably gonna have to like I don't know, like bust your face open or like, you know, you're gonna have to like look rough and a little more rough and tumble.
Well, and I'm a method actor too, so I'll just be like, I'll cut my face. All right, I'm ready.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
He will, guys.
No,
Seriously.
No, I won't. I'm not that crazy. So what's some, because we got to wrap up, but what's some last advice that you could give anybody out there, guys, both of you, that's sick or suffering or looking for help or just starting in the program? Just a couple last little nuggets of dignity that we can give them. Anything.
I'm trying not to be too cliche.
Anything.
Oh,
Don't worry about it.
The thing I would recommend when finding a sponsor is 3 things. Whether they have time to meet you consistently, if they've had a spiritual awakening, and if they're willing to take you through the steps as they've gone through it.
Okay, how would you know if someone had a spiritual awakening or not?
Well, I mean, you could tell by the way that they act, the way that they carry themselves. If they, if they're holding their head up high, that means that they're confident in who they are. If they've got their shoulders back and they're not slunched, everything about body language will tell you.
I like that you said that, because behavior doesn't lie.
Correct.
And my first sponsor pounded that in my head. Behavior doesn't lie. Mouths lie. Pee lies sometimes, but behavior. So when you match, I don't know. It's my experience. When you match someone's behavior with what their mouth is saying, and if those two things don't match,
I feel like a lot of people brag and overcompensate what it is that they've actually done now. There is a lot of that in the program that I've seen.
My thing is I don't believe anything till I see it.
Correct. And that's my biggest thing.
I'm an artist, so I run into artists. I'm a filmmaker. I'm an actor. I'm a musician. Show me your work.
Yeah.
Let me see your work.
Like, really, what have you been in?
Let me see it.
Yeah.
Because if I go, I'm an actor, I go, here's my movies. Watch them, judge the shit out of me. Yeah. Whatever. Tell me how much I suck. But at least I'm doing it.
Prostitute, I believe that. That's one thing I'll believe.
It's true.
But
it's true.
That's definitely.
It's true. It's because I can gargle people's names backwards, which is it's hard. I'm Nitsudge, by the way. Never mind. So any other advice that you'd like to give any of our audience out there? Melissa?
You are right there.
I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, I'm asylum backwards, you know that, right?
Asylum! It makes so much sense.
Doesn't it? Totally makes. I mean, it's not spelled the same way, but you get the drift.
Emily. Elime.
Oh my god.
Asylum Nitsudge. Turned really weird. Like most of our episodes, we always divert off.
Like right at the end.
Figures.
Last advice. I mean, anything, even if it's something that sticks with you guys. Like, there's always those quotes that stick with people. You know, something that changed you.
Something that like has been coming up in the meetings that I've been going to lately is like, don't quit before the miracle happens. And like, I know it sounds like really corny, but like when you first asked that question and she was responding, like that was the only thing consistently popping up in my head. You know, and it's true. Don't quit before the miracle happens, you know. If you don't want to do something that somebody suggested to you, you should do it now.
Oh, absolutely.
Because those are usually the things that are going to save your fucking life.
And if it sucks now, it's going to suck later if you don't do it.
Get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah, not going through the pain will kill you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Going through the pain isn't going to kill you.
Exactly.
Not going through it will.
Well,
listen.
Growth is painful, right? You know?
That's why they call it growing pains. I'd love to have you guys... have you guys back.
I feel like I need to like take this off and like mic drop.
Just smash them together. No, don't do that. I'd love to have you guys back again another day on Recovery Shared, and we'll talk about, you know, another subject. Maybe one day we'll have because we're going to bring therapists in and all kinds of people, and we'll talk about the sponsor relationship a little further.
Okay.
I think it might be interesting even if we have another sponsee couple that we kind of, that like maybe two guys, and we'll talk about the differences of what works and what doesn't, because it's an important thing, and I think a lot of people are kind of left in the dark. About who to look for and stuff like that. That's why I said, like, how do you know somebody's had a spiritual experience? And then you gave our viewers the tools. Look at how they carry themselves, how they live their everyday life. And know this, too. A new broom always sweeps good. So somebody might be able to put on a front for a couple weeks, but look at somebody over time.
Yeah.
You know? And time stands for things I must earn. So Melissa, Emily, Justin Sims, Recovery Shared. We hope to see you soon. Subscribe on the bottom, leave some comments, let us know what you think. Good, bad, and different. It doesn't matter. Let us know. We want to hear what you think. Hey, thanks for watching Recovery Shared. Please go to our About page on our channel and you'll find links to treatment centers that we've reviewed and recommend. Also on our About page, you'll find helpful links to traditional and non-traditional recovery help. Let's help each other together. We can help save a life.